Now we got that out of the way. Okay, Jordan, do we have to do minutes tonight?
Say that one more time.
Do we have minutes that we have to approve tonight, or do we?
Oh, yes, from the last meeting we had, which was last Thursday.
Okay, Hobbs, you want to do your duty and make the motion, and Ilana, you can second.
I motion.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes be approved as read or as written, and all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. They stand approved as read or written. So moving on, I want to thank everybody for their diligence and working on the document, and it would be my hope that we can work our way through it tonight and know what final T's and I's need to be finished, so it can be submitted on time on Friday. So let's all go to the document, and we'll just go through it paragraph by paragraph. It starts out with Portland Public Schools CBRC Annual Budget Review, fiscal year 2022-23. The background and purpose of the Community Budget Review Committee, CBRC. The Community Budget Review Committee, CBRC, reviews, evaluates, and makes recommendations to the Portland Public School Board of Education Board regarding the superintendent's proposed budget and any other budgetary issues the CBRC or board identify. The CBRC also monitors and advises the board on the allocation and expenditure of local option levy funds, which will which will be completed under separate cover. Oregon revised statutes establish required formats for budgets given the size and scope of Portland Public Schools PPS budget is necessarily big and complex. In order to make it less arduous for public consumption, CBRC pledges to continue to work with district staff in developing an explanatory document to increase understanding of PPS's education funding. Emphasized in ORS is the concept of community involvement. CBRC attempts to fulfill this objective. CBRC members signed the same confidential agreement as the directors. CBRC could and should be involved in much more. Legal counsel should be informed that this is the board's desire and ask it how to do it legally. There was a comment, I think, that came from Lisa asking whether this board is observes that it's subjective, and it's whether it's coming from the board. What is written in the last two paragraphs is mine, and if you would like to discuss it, I'd be glad to hear it.
Yeah, I just felt this was subjective because you're saying it's the board's desire, and maybe you're meaning that it's part of ORS, and that yeah, I just felt like this is a little more subjective, and I just wanted to make sure that we're not speaking for the board.
It's I guess it's the hope that it's their desire. It's my observation in being at board meetings and so on, they often tout community involvement, and so I'm kind of nudging them to practice what they preach.
Right, but I don't think you can say it's the board's desire if it's not. That's what my concern is. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure, like, if the board has directed it and they want more involvement on our part, then I would leave it. If the board specifically did not say this is what they want and they're going to pursue it further, then I would take this out. I
would wonder if you could amend it and say it's hopefully it's the board's desire then.
How about, yeah, I'll put some notes in here and I will, okay, we can move on.
This is in large part of a response to what happened a couple years ago when the board was involved in labor negotiations. The CBRC met on Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember, and the very next day, a board member violated the confidential agreement and leaked it to the press, and it was then a whole evening's of work of CBRC was for naught. And had we simply been informed that's kind of the nature and scope of the negotiations, we could have moved in a much more expeditious way. And so that's my point. In every jurisdiction that is under 200,000, that's where Portland becomes an exception. The budget committee is comprised of community members and the governing body, and that is the budget committee. Portland is exempt from that, so is Beaverton, and so that's the background to this comment. So
Okay, I'll reword it in a way that it's coming from the CBRC, that we think there's a bigger role for CBRC to play as the community involvement piece. But I think we should move on because I don't want to. Okay. I know we have more important stuff to talk about.
Oh, that's the background. So
okay, thank you.
Okay, then contact setting and special considerations. The fiscal year 22-23 budget review process has continued to be challenging for both PPS finance staff and CBRC. Recruitment of new members to the committee proved to be difficult, resulting in fewer members than the previous year and a postponement of initial kickoff meetings to January 2022. Subsequently, the time allotted for CBRC to fulfill its review and comment role this year has been unusually compressed, making the task even more demanding. Additionally, due to physical distancing protocols, the CBRC has continued to meet virtually throughout the fiscal year budget cycle. There are significant limitations around our ability to provide a comprehensive report and recommendations to the board. While the district reopened with in-person instruction and a virtual classroom option for the 21-22 school year, the uncertainty around the long-term impacts of COVID on students in academic, mental, and social well-being make it difficult to evaluate whether the proposed budget will ultimately be responsible to these added complexities and close together this year. And we appreciate the collaborative efforts of Chief Financial Officer Norberto Degodio and his team. Any comments about that from anyone before we move on?
I'll just make one little clarification. I know it's not super significant, but it's worth clarifying, I suppose. It says on the first paragraph, additionally, due to the physical distancing protocols, the CBRC has continued to meet virtually. So we've actually been able to meet in person for quite some time now. We just haven't done that. So it's not necessarily protocols that are at this point, or at least in the last few meetings. We can, in fact, meet in person if we wanted to. So I don't know if we want to just like change the language just a little bit, or add that originally we weren't able to meet in person and now we have been, but have selected not to, or I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
I think Lisa just amended it, and has everybody seen that? It says additionally, the CBRC has continued to meet virtually throughout the fiscal year. So any other comments? Hearing none, let's move on to budget observation. Focus of review for four board goals are the four board goals. The primary focus of CBRC's review is tied to the four performance goals established for all public schools as articulated by the board as the result of a comprehensive visioning process completed in 2019. Those goals being third grade reading, fifth grade mathematics, eighth grade snapshot of graduate performance, and post-secondary readiness for college and career. Based on the winter map testing data, PPS students fell short of achieving the four goals across all grades, while elementary and high school students who participated in MAP were closer to achieving 50% growth in mathematics and reading. Student performance overall is lower than prior to the pandemic. In order to close the learning gap at all grade levels and the added focus on middle school students, it is imperative that the board adopt the proposed strategic investments of the student investment account. I think it's ACT rather than account, but I'll move on. Elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund, grant funds, ESSER, and summer state dollars to increase learning opportunities for every student, provide wraparound supports, expand tutoring, enhance summer learning, and provide professional development for staff. Any comments about that part?
I have two. First, I feel comfortable saying PPS students fell short of achieving the four goals across all grade levels because, and I think I took some of this wording from the map, but I don't necessarily want to put this all on the students and so I'm trying to figure out what would be a better way to say that we as a district didn't meet the goals. I just feel like something about this doesn't sit right with me. And then the second piece, oh, go ahead.
I agree.
Yeah, I need to figure out what's a better way to say that. And then I think the second piece is, I know in the MAP presentation, the focus is on middle school students, but I also believe that Native students had the lower scores. And so I just want to see if everybody's in agreement that we should say something to that with an added focus on middle school students and Native students, or do we need other students as well?
Well, the cohort was spoken of as Native students and the South Sea Islander students. But it was also noted, Lisa, when those reports are given, that cohort is so small that it doesn't take but just a few students to do one way or the other for it to swing widely statistically. So that's
right. So should we acknowledge? But do we need to acknowledge that?
Well, you can say that.
Okay.
That's really more for public consumption than is the board. I think the board has been informed about that, and
okay.
But but the majority of the students still didn't meet benchmark. Of the indigenous students still did not meet benchmark. In other words, yeah.
According to the MAP test, this last go around, I guess.
Right, you're right. No, Renee, and that's what we say is that they were closer to achieving 50%, but we're lower now than prior to the pandemic, and that in this round it indicated that the students that were falling even more behind were in the middle school grades. And so I think we're saying what you just said, which is we're not meeting them. Right. And so, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if we needed to add Native students as go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm talking to myself. I noticed someone
Okay.
students out. I'm sorry.
Also, Lisa, is it student investment account or ACT?
I believe I got this from the board, but I'll verify that.
It's
I'll look
account.
now.
So SIA is
It's
account and SSA
Okay.
is Student Success Act. Those are two
Okay.
different things.
Okay.
Okay, I was right.
Where SIA is a part of Student Success Act, one of the 3 buckets.
Right.
Okay. So Lisa, you're going to do some refinement on that paragraph for us. So then,
Yeah, it looks like Alona, I believe, took out. You know, I think people are looking at it as what's another way to say this, more like PPS. Yeah, more like put it on the district versus the students, which I think is correct. Okay, we're good. I'll work on it, continue to work on it, but I think we're all in agreement on that one.
okay. Moving on. Observations. First observation written by Lisa. We believe the budget demonstrates substantial support for the board goals for PPS students. With the projected reductions in enrollment and associated funding allocations in fiscal 22-23, we commend the board's commitment to continued previous targeted investments, improved class sizes in K-8, and to reduce the impact on schools experiencing large K-5 enrollment losses through the use of all available funds in the general fund, SIA, and ESSER grant funds to ensure that all PPS students continue on the path of growth and acceleration. Any rewording or suggestions, comments on that?
Yeah, I think maybe again, like in that first sentence, I might just say that the budget demonstrates support for the 4 board goals for PPS and not PPS students. I don't know. Again, I just feel like something about this seems heavy burdened on the students versus the district or the system. So maybe we just take that out.
My English teacher in high school would comment that you have a real long sentence there.
Yeah, maybe I'll just put a note in there to break it up a little.
Okay. So let's move on then. Or did you have a comment, Ilana? Sorry.
No, I just deleted students. It's okay.
Okay. Renee and Ilana worked on 2 and 4. What, 2, 4?
Oh, I was just gonna say, Alana, I appreciate you coming in here and doing it too as we're going through it.
Okay, number 2, this year's edition of the critical analysis from staff of budget changes with specific lens of the RESJ process makes substantial progress in helping the community understand the intended impact of budget changes. We have also seen a concerted effort to reflect the diversity of our community in the makeup of the central office. And although this is great, it is not the only component to make the systematic changes needed. We commend PPS for collaborating with a number of community-based programs that specialize in serving the Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC communities. However, we are concerned that PPS lost so many Black teachers and administrators due to retirement, seeking employment in other districts in and out of the state are leaving education profession list last year, and the number was not replenished. I presume, Ilana, that's based on your knowledge of more detail than I'm aware of. The last I knew, that our retention was around about 80% for new teachers of all colors.
That was mine. I did that.
The pink is,
The pink is me.
yep.
Oh, okay, well then,
And let me see.
maybe
And the
you know
yellow, according to, or recently, that yellow is me also.
Oh, where do you see yellow? Oh, that,
Oh, maybe, I don't know if I'm looking the same thing you're looking at, but according to a recently published report, the report about in Portland, Oregon, I'm sorry, Oregon was mentioned as one of the states that had the most loss in academics because of the pandemic. And so I put that in there.
and that report came from where?
It's a Harvard report.
Oh,
think
that's all right.
Yeah, Renee,
I don't
just
know if
think-
that's
oh.
the place to put it, but so in other words, our gap is widening. And my whole piece is that we are in a crisis situation. I mean, we really are. This is the worst it's ever been as long as I can remember. And we're in this crisis because of the pandemic. And so we have to be bold about getting out of this crisis. So we have to throw everything we can into the summer and this next school year. Right now, summer school, I mean, it's still early, I guess, because it's still May, but students are not enrolling at the rate they need to be enrolling in. So we're hoping that we're going to get a lot of students in the summer programs because we truly need to address the loss of education. The loss, students have not, are not where they should be. They're more behind, the gap is wider. They're more behind than ever. So that's what all that stuff is about. And
yeah, Renee, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
So if we go to paragraph 2, and we're talking about Black teachers and administrators and the numbers, do we know what those numbers are to kind of further support what you're saying?
I
can we maybe
not have the exact numbers. I did have them at one time. I got when Loretta was HR at that time, and she had shared them with me. I could not find them, but
so maybe that's something we can ask.
She called it
Jordan.
the Grand Exodus. That's what she called it.
Yeah, I remember that. I can actually add this to the Q&A document and see if we can get it.
Yeah, I think that would be good because I think what Renee is saying is important, and I think maybe what we can talk about, Renee, is that not only are the numbers not being, we aren't striving to not only maintain but actually to increase those numbers. But I do think having something to support what you're saying would further substantiate that. And then on on number 3, where you pulled from the report, I just when I read this, something's missing. So that's what my question to you was more.
Okay.
I was,
Let me see.
I was able to identify where you were pulling it from. So I just kind of added what the report title, the full where it's coming from. But where you say, for example, in high remote instruction states, including populous states such as California, Illinois, New Jersey, Oregon, Virginia, Washington, and the District of Columbia, it seems like something's missing in that sentence. Or maybe it's for reference.
No,
maybe
that's what I was pointing out, that high poverty schools were more likely to be remote in all 4 groups. Oh, no, you're right. There is something missing. No, but the gaps were larger in those states with higher rates of remote instruction. For example, in remote instruction states. Oh.
See the sentence.
Right.
Yeah, something either or. We just need to combine the two.
Missing. Okay. There's
that was my only comment on that. Was something just seems to be cut off, or we just need to combine the 2 sentences, or refer one to the other. Okay.
Okay. I will go back to I think I have it in my Google Docs. Okay.
Okay.
And then You're under the second, I guess it's the second paragraph is 3. I think what you're saying here is important, and I thought almost that we should make this as a recommendation of like that we believe PPS is in a crisis mode, and subsequently we recommend that, and then we can continue on with that paragraph there.
Yes.
Actually,
And
I think
I
it's
did
more like
put
an
that
action
in my-
of we recommend you do this.
Right. I did put that in my list of recommendations that so I thought we were asked to send in recommendations for discussion. So I did put that in my list
sorry.
of
What was
recommendations. The part that we're in crisis mode at the beginning of the list, before I wrote down the list. And I did not put in, we need to hire more teachers of color, because they're talking about, well, I actually, I can't remember. I had it on there. I wrote that letter, the recommendations, but I've changed it. I've edited it quite a few times, so I really don't know which one I sent. But I did have hiring more teachers, period. We need more people. We need
Well,
social
now you're
workers.
discussing recommendations.
So I
this
sent
is
in a list of,
observation.
right. So I did send in a list
Okay,
for discussion. I didn't
Yeah,
put
okay.
it in the template because I felt that was supposed to be for discussion tonight.
that's fine.
That's what we had talked about.
So, discussing what is drafted for the observation here, are we all comfortable with what is in the pink paragraph that is that PPS is in crisis mode as an observation?
Yeah, that's an observation.
Okay. Yeah,
Well, that's a
I-
fact.
Yeah,
I'm thinking it's a fact.
Okay, I understand your opinion. I'm asking the whole committee. So,
Yeah, I wonder if can we say or many of our schools, or do we feel like all the schools are in crisis mode?
I don't think all the schools are in crisis mode, but
Collectively we are. Yeah.
Right, but Portland Public Schools, yes, because there are just so many issues going on. And it's and I think a lot of it is because of the pandemic. There were issues that existed before the pandemic, but now those issues are on steroids. Some, and then of course we have new ones. And even when you listen to some of the people from the schools that are doing well, they also talk about social and emotional trauma. And so, yeah, I don't think PPS is unique in having more problems, but in this report, we're in with those other states as having the highest the most consequences of the pandemic.
So I sense that we're more or less in agreement with observation 3. If Renee and Lisa or anybody else want to refine the language a little bit, have at it, and we can move on to observation.
Roger?
Yes. Okay.
I was wondering, do you think that it would be best, like I have a question regarding just language that we use. that it should be the same all the way through that I included in 3? Should I point that out now, or will we have a time later to go
Yeah.
through?
Point it
Now.
out.
Okay. So, in the first sentence, it's investing in historically and presently oppressed students instead of just marginalized or all of the other demeaning words that we use to talk about those students. And I just think that we should use this kind of language that acknowledges the present harms as well throughout.
Okay.
Is the I noticed we don't the historically underserved has been replaced with combined underserved. Is that the appropriate wording there, Ilana, or
Yes.
what would you suggest?
Say combined underserved, is that what you said?
Yeah, I believe that's becoming the term of art rather than saying historically underserved.
I'll just say that I think and what Alana is speaking to is not an issue with the historically, but the word underserved. So yes,
Well,
we often will use.
What she would suggest as the wording be.
I think the suggestion is that it's changed to historically and presently oppressed as
Yes.
it's written. Yeah.
So you're saying that to leave it as it is?
Yeah, I just wanted to note it so that if we see it in other places, we can replace the other version of this with this. Does that make sense? Like if we see marginal.
So Ilana, to
Yep.
be clear, so we're going to take historically underserved and presently oppressed students, and where I have Black, brown, I was trying to think of another word for, I know that they say something, it's not poor, but I couldn't think of it. So I'm going to take that and put that for Black, brown, SPED, ELL, etc.
No, I think that what I'm saying is that what I am saying, not what I think, is that instead of saying marginalized students, we'll replace marginalized with historically and presently oppressed.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yours is fine. You could say intersectional youth, but that can be confusing. I think calling out all of the different pieces in your portion makes sense, and I'll help you think through a different word than poor.
Yeah, please do. I didn't like that. I don't like
Yeah,
that.
and I would agree with calling out the individual groups as well. I think it's important.
I also see a hyphen there right after students. Is that intentional, or should that be eliminated?
I guess I type how I write. So I did, since we're calling out specifically Black and Native students, I put a dash. If that's not correct, then we can take that.
Is that supposed to be an M dash instead of a hyphen?
Oh, probably.
Okay. All right.
Yep, I don't know grammar anymore. Sorry. Yes, you can change that. Thank you.
And since you said use native, then I'm going to use native instead of indigenous. So, I mean, it needs to look like we wrote it as a.
I mean, I think indigenous is fine. It's just, we should just choose whichever one we want to use, or whichever one PPS uses, maybe. What do you think, Jordan?
I would actually say that those are not interchangeable terms. That they actually mean two different things, right? So when we're talking about native, I don't want to just sound ignorant, because I think we should probably look this up and dive further into it. But from my understanding, indigenous could mean lots of different things, and from a global perspective, lots of different things, whereas native is usually a term specific to Native American. But what I do know for a fact is that those two terms are not interchangeable, and that we should be very intentional about making sure we're using the correct term in the correct context. Which, if somebody wants to bring up the Googles, we can start doing some research. But yeah.
But that was one of your comments, Jordan, which I think is good, is that we need to make sure that we're using the correct references. And you know,
Yeah,
you have here like BIPOC versus if you're just talking about Black or Indigenous, not to use BIPOC, right? That's what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of like that, where it's being really intentional about recognizing, acknowledging the community that you're specifically talking about. Right. So, you know, if it's a Black, involving Black folks, you should say Black, not necessarily people of color.
Right.
Because it's encompassing a lot more than Black folks, and their experiences are different.
Right.
Getting back to my M dash, would somebody who knows how to do it in this format insert an M dash instead of a hyphen there? I know how to do it in Word, but I don't know how to do it here. So
an M dash? What do you? I don't know.
It's a long dash. That's the technical term for called M dash, and it's found in Word when you insert from.
Right, it's like 3 dashes, isn't it? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, there's a short one and there's a long one. You want the long one here.
Is it good now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I invite others to refine the language on 3, and let's move on to 4. The 4 observation reads, the equity allocation of 8% of the staffing model at targeted schools has held steady since the fiscal year 16-17. We continue to support this investment and approach and note that the visibility and the budget book, volume 2, is a valuable tool to demonstrate transparency to the community. However, only providing school level staff allocation lacks the transparency into intended uses and accountable outcomes that we wish to see. Who authored that? And
I think
that was in last year, wasn't it?
Yes, and in reviewing, it still seems accurate.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I just made a note regarding this, but I think that could potentially lead to a recommendation. My note, I don't think we need to change anything in form from my perspective, but what do you all think?
Yeah, I guess I agree as well, as long as we come back to address, I know you had a good comment in here about kind of the community involvement piece and actually deciding how the investments and the additional teaching positions will be allocated within a school. And then I know that the CBRC has consistently asked for more information of how they're used and how the positions are used, and then a report on, kind of an assessment afterwards. So I do think just as long as we address it in the recommendations, I think that's good.
So are we ready to move to number 5, written by Hobbs?
Hold on. Did anybody need clarification on number 4? I'm sorry. I'm doing a couple things at the same time. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to keep up with y'all. Y'all are moving really fast, which is great.
Okay, moving on. Number 5. We acknowledge that the district continues to face significant challenges created by the pandemic and its lingering effects on enrollment, facilities, academic, and social emotional needs of students, and urge the district to continue to take a do now, build toward approach, which can help the district emerge stronger and healthier than it was prior to the pandemic. In the do now category, we support the use of one-time federal funds to be used for the fiscal year 2022-23. I guess for consistency, sometimes we're saying 22, 23, but however, whichever way, we ought to be consistent. Moving on, for equity-focused activities such as high-dosage tutoring, small group instruction, extended core instruction time in specific grades and subjects, and mentoring and other social emotional supports. In the build toward category, we urge the district to invest in more learning time via extended days or years, intersessions, and ongoing high-intensity tutoring, smaller class sizes in priority grades, and subjects where needs are greatest, offset by larger class sizes elsewhere, integrated learning systems across live and asynchronous platforms, and specialized and advanced high school classes offered online to maximize access, and free teachers for more individual instruction. Boy, that's a long sentence, Hobbs. In sum, we urge the board and district to use all resources at its disposal to not just fill holes, but plant seeds for long-term change. Comments from anyone? Hearing none, I guess we'll go ahead. I took my hand at writing number 6. The proposed reductions to central services are quite concerning and unsustainable given the current state of our schools. The proposed 22-23 budget, again, we need the standardized term there. The budget proposes to cut $7 million in services, including 13 custodial positions. It is unclear as to where or why these positions are being cut. The district has been short of custodians and maintenance positions for at least 5 years. As stated last year, CBRC believes the district is underinvesting in centralized positions that are designed to ensure schools and students are supported. And then I put in brackets another comment that we might consider. Indeed, these cuts run counter to promises made to voters at bond elections, rather than run the risk of allowing unused buildings falling into disrepair. Should read. Consideration might be given to entering into agreements with the city and county for the use of these buildings to aid in the housing of homeless, unsheltered individuals and families. My thought there, just to share with you, in recent years there was consideration to reopen a building called Smith Elementary out in Southwest, and it was found to be in such disrepair because of a leaky roof that it would take considerable investment to reestablish it as a functioning school. So I'm concerned that we're told that we're operating schools in 81 buildings. I know we use some buildings for administration, but there are other buildings I think that are just vacant, and rather than have them fall in disrepair, I'd rather have them operating, and let the city and county pay for their operation and maintenance, and use them for housing the homeless that we see on our streets. So comments?
Yeah, I guess is these buildings that are empty, they're not taking away from what you're talking about, which is like custodial positions that we aren't, no one is really maintaining these buildings.
That based on what happened to Smith, apparently that happens, but in of the 13 custodial positions that Berto mentioned, it was unclear as to where or why these positions are being cut. I don't know whether we have 13 positions at Blanchard that are unnecessary, or 13 someplace else. But if we're 70 short overall in the district, why in the heck are we cutting any positions? Reassign them to other buildings.
Right. I guess what I'm asking is your second paragraph is talking about something totally different than what your first paragraph is, because if the focus is on custodial positions being cut, we currently aren't servicing those secondary buildings that you're talking about that are falling into disrepair. So I kind of want to just stay on target here of that we're talking about custodial positions for all currently open school operating schools, and that what you're proposing for abandoned or buildings, unused buildings, is a totally separate issue. And I would just word of caution of bringing this up, because I think it could raise a lot of concern when we start talking about using buildings for other purposes. And so I would just be cautious of including this here.
Well, the board has already been approached about the use of vacant land that it owns up where Adams High School used to be located, and then it was subsequently called Whitaker, I believe, and or something like that, and it ultimately decided against the city's approach for use of that for temporary housing for the homeless, but it's not an open subject with the district, and I'm merely pointing out that if we have vacant buildings, rather than allow them to become unusable, why not enter into agreements with the city and county for these as a possible way of mitigating the homeless.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying here is I think we need to stay focused on what our purpose is, and the focus staying on the schools and the kids, and that this is a totally separate issue. And that's my concern, is that by bringing it in here, it raises all other red flags that aren't part of our purpose here. That's just my concern. So I guess I'm not comfortable with leaving it in there, but other people can weigh in.
Yeah, I agree with Lisa. I think that especially in the observations, we should just focus on matters that directly impact the students. So custodians that directly impacts the students, but the management of TPS vacant buildings, that doesn't that's not really, I don't feel like that's directly impacting the students. And I feel like that second paragraph that could be more of a suggestion, but I don't feel like it belongs in the observation section of the report.
Would you be comfortable with moving it to the recommendations?
I think if we're talking about it in terms of, if I know Renee, some of the back and forth today was trying to find funding in order to focus on the kids, then I could see that as if the city and county are going to pay the district money for that, then yes, I would say it could be a recommendation if we're looking for sources of funding. But if it's really, this is a recommendation of how the school uses unused buildings, I would say no. I don't think that's, again, this is just my opinion, but I think it's opening up a can of worms for a much bigger issue in our city. And I just think our purpose is to stay focused on the kids.
Yeah, and like while I feel like this is actually not a bad idea, like we're making recommendations for the board, and like we want them to really be focused on the students and their goals. Like I feel like if we're recommending things that aren't related, they could get distracted and get away from what we're really here for.
Well, I would say that this is student focused because, I volunteer at a high school, and homeless are all around the high schools. And in fact, we had, the other day, I arrived at the school at 5:45 in the morning, and there was a naked man in the trash area, and obviously was having a mental crisis, but nevertheless, it required district personnel to deal with it, and was dealt with before students arrived on campus. But this, and we've had people come into the building that with similar crises, and so on. I guess I disagree whether this is student oriented or not, but I'm fine moving it to recommendations. But otherwise, I guess we disagree. And if it's the will of the committee to eliminate it, then it'll be eliminated.
I'll just make a couple of quick points. One, I do think that houselessness impacts students, not just because there are houseless people around students, but because many students are houseless. Though I will say the second part is that, Roger, that's not necessarily a bad topic or area to look at. It just might need way more time and consideration and thought.
Well, historically, ever since I've been on this committee, Portland Public Schools has had a number in the range of 1,300 to 1,500 students that are without homes.
Yes. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that partnerships where we're, providing property over to the city would require some pretty large scale thinking and planning, and also would, it just means a lot of things. So I think if you're going to suggest that or recommend it, in my opinion, you don't have to take my opinion at all. My opinion means nothing to this. But if you're going to recommend it, you may have to just do a little bit more digging into what that could look like. Otherwise, it's just kind of it's a one-off, and it may not be even considered.
Well, my response to that is that I don't believe it's incumbent upon us to do that homework. Yeah, I think it's a suggestion that it might be considered, and let the people that deal with those kinds of technical issues work it out. And if it's a fiscal impossibility, or the city or county are not interested in the then so be it. But it's just an observation that rather than have buildings sit vacant and deteriorate, that they might be constructively used, and everybody is in the community seems to be alarmed about how slowly it's been taking to address these issues.
Those are good points, Roger. Good points.
Well, how about we table this one for now and we can move through the rest of the document, and then we can come back to it.
Okay, fine. Let's move on to number 7. It says CBRC applauds the resumption of the regular schedule for MAP assessments as they represent a fundamental measure to the district's academic success or failure. According to Dr. Adams' recent presentation, it is our understanding elementary and high schools nearly achieved their annual goal of 50%, whereas middle school scores were lower. While disappointed that MAP scores didn't achieve the sought-after goal, it is difficult to truly assess the effects that COVID has wrought due to the suspension of in-person instruction and the institution of comprehensive distance learning, CDL. CBRC continues to emphasize that MAP testing measures reading and mathematics acknowledge the importance of a suite of assessment instruments that help paint a complete picture of students' social, emotional, and academic well-being. Presently, CBRC endorses the board's decision. I guess it should say pending based on what Ailey shared with us. To continue the MAPS goal of 50% for again, we need to standardize that budget year. And then I don't know exactly who added that. I don't
did it.
Huh?
I did it. This is Renee.
Okay.
I do not believe they should have done a fall test and a winter test. The fall test did not have the fall test was not taken by the majority of the students. And the spread between fall and winter is not enough time to be giving us data. Plus, they did not give us the whole story in the presentation. We can get the whole story, but I attended some workshops via Zoom. And ODE basically said that for the last 2 years, we don't really have any data that we can use as far as testing goes because of attendance, low attendance. Many teachers would not give the test because they didn't feel it was right when they were having so much trouble doing Zoom lessons, et cetera. That was the first year. The second year, they still weren't totally on board. They lost a lot of students, and there are all kinds of reasons why ODE is saying we don't have good results. So I don't think they should have done the test in the fall, basically. So I don't agree. I cannot say that I applaud them for resuming the test right now when they did it in the fall. So, and then to compare, and basically we didn't come out with different results. Our students of color are still in a gap and it's wider, but we knew that was going to happen. So I have a problem spending the time they could have been teaching, and it takes forever to take tests. I'm a former school teacher. That takes a lot of time out of your teaching lesson to do those tests. And we really needed to be teaching, not testing. But that is my individual. Well, no, it's not. There are a whole lot of teachers I know that are saying the same thing. So I won't say. And the other thing about testing is the nation. There are post-secondary institutions throughout the nation who no longer do standardized testing because of all kinds of issues. And, and I'm sure you've heard them. But so I can't understand why we still spend so much time in testing. And that there's another test in the spring and it's not the MAP. So it's just ridiculous.
Well, commented that we obviously need to discuss this. As I understand, MAP testing was kind of suspended during the comprehensive distance learning, or any attempts to do it were unsatisfactory.
Right, during Zoom.
And,
Correct.
and I would understand why OED would opine in such manner. But it's my understanding the district is trying to get back to the 2 times a year MAP testing, because it's the lead indicator as to how well the district is doing. And so I am well aware that there are opt-out people that have long militated against SAT testing, smaller balance testing, and even tests that classroom teachers devise to monitor the ongoing progress of their students. So I'm I don't know. I think what I was trying to express there is that I'm that we're glad that we're trying to get back to some kind of normal, and that but if that's not the will of the group, that's fine with me too.
Now, I just wanted my opinion to be heard. So
Yeah, but go ahead, Renee.
I just have a problem with tests, and we know for a fact that there are students who don't test well. I would have students who knew their math. I mean, they got it, they understood it, they could explain it to other students, but they couldn't take a test. They could not. A standardized test was not for them. So I just have issues with the test. So, but I just wanted to state that I'm taking it out now. But I just wanted to let you know that I can't totally say that I think those students were ready to take that test in the fall, and that we would actually report data. So,
Well, but
Why would you take it out, Renee? I agree fully with you.
huh?
I agree fully with you.
Well,
So I don't think you should take out your thoughts.
no. Well, no. I think a report from a committee should be consistent. So and maybe somewhere in there we can say,
would you have
it is
CBRC
difficult. Wait, just a
recommend
second.
that
Let me read a sentence. Just a minute.
Yeah, I guess mine was the secondary comment, because I think some of the information Jordan had sent was, whether this testing is indicative, like I think they distinguish between, academic performance versus academic achievement, and that, we're testing students, but we really need to be also looking at the curriculum and how it's taught, and then different approaches to reach different students. So I agree with what Renee is saying. And so I wonder if we lead with, at the last or second to last sentence, it says, the CBRC continues to emphasize the MAP testing, but I wonder if we start this paragraph off by saying CBRC acknowledges the importance of a suite of assessments instruments that help paint a complete picture of student social, emotional, and academic well-being. And then we can just say something about referring to periodic testing to make sure that the district is meeting its something about its obligation to our students. And then, again, I agree, like, it's not about, like, that our focus again should be on the kids and their needs, and not worry so much about the test taking, although it's just like a bit of a measure, but that we also should be looking at the curriculum and other approaches to how we're teaching, because it's not, I think it's what I felt uncomfortable with before is that we're putting a lot of this on the kids. And I think the way we talk about it, and we are indicating that kids aren't achieving, but we really we need to look at the system and how it's being taught. So I agree with your comment. I think we just need to change the wording in here. And I appreciate what Roger said too. Like, we need a check in here, but it's not the end all, and it doesn't paint the full picture.
Right. Right. And
Yeah,
right, it doesn't paint the full picture.
my observation is MAP never asserts that it is the end all of all. But take your hand at rewording it. I'm fine with that, with the views expressed.
Yeah, I think you
So-
could definitely offer a nuanced observation that includes multiple truths simultaneously, while remaining consistent, right? So you don't have to applaud necessarily if you don't believe in that. You also don't have to all agree that assessments work or they don't work, but you can mention all of those things simultaneously, and perhaps maybe you say we're not in complete consensus that assessments are a effective tool of measuring success or failure.
I think what we're saying is that it's a one way of measuring, but
yeah.
it's not.
Right.
Well, I'm actually hearing multiple things. So I'm just repeating what I'm hearing. I'm hearing some folks say that assessments are one measure. I'm also hearing that assessments don't work. So those are two different ideas. So I'm just saying, like, I'm throwing it out there that you can find a way to write a nuanced observation.
Yeah, so I believe there are assessments that work, and I also believe that we should do multiple assessments. TSPC is even going back to, they were doing that crazy CBES. Well, I'm not going to get into that in detail, but because I could go on about that for an hour too. But they are, and I think they've already started, but they were talking about going back to allowing teachers to also do portfolios, because there are people who do not test well. They make amazing teachers. You don't have to test well to be an amazing teacher. There were people who were getting, I was tutoring a student on the CBES who got 4.0 at Lewis and Clark to become a counselor. They wanted to test her on algebra. She hadn't taken algebra in when? And why did she need that to be a counselor? So there should be other assessments, and that should be from kindergarten up. There are ways that you can assess your students. Some of it is just talking to them, asking them questions, let them be verbal. But anyway, let's go on.
Renee, do
Yes.
you want to take a stab at that, or do you want me to take a stab at it to kind of combine what we're all saying? And I agree with Jordan that I think saying that while we haven't reached full consensus, that I can try and reword it, but I didn't know if you wanted to tackle that.
I would actually I'm not the writer, so I'm the math teacher. So I would prefer,
how about
you write it and then I read it. But
great.
And basically what I'm saying is I just wish we wouldn't test as often, that we would also look at other ways of testing. So other ways of assessing what our students know. But,
Alana's hand's raised. Alana, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if we could take the word applaud out, because I duly disagree with that word. But unless people would like to include it and have a good argument for it.
I'm sorry, which word?
Applaud.
Oh yeah. Yeah, applaud is not quite the right word for me.
Take it out. So I guess Lisa's going to take a hand at rewriting it. Let's move on to recommendations. We recommend additional investment in middle mathematics, English language arts, and other enhanced learning opportunities to ensure students are reaching high school and graduate readiness. While all students have been affected by the pandemic, the loss of learning was greatest in at the middle school level and among our Black, Native, and Latinx students based on the most recent MAP testing data. The proposed targeted investments of one-time federal money may increase progress toward this goal. This investment must also be paired with a long-term plan and funding to reduce the achievement disparities with historically and underserved groups. Any comments on that paragraph? It's essentially what was written last year, I guess, as I recall, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think one is I included Latinx students because it was what was in the MAP assessment data that was presented, but I don't know, again, Jordan, I'll default to you if that's the correct language to use. And then I'll change what we talked about before on the underserved, taking that out.
Other comments?
That's all we're recommending?
What? No, we're going
English
on.
language arts. Wait, I'm sorry. English. We recommend additional. I'm sorry. I'm gonna turn off my mute. I have to talk to myself.
So Renee, just so you know, this was in response to the results of the MAP testing, but if I agree, it kind of singles out some things, but it really was in response to the results from the MAP testing.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, to move on. Is that what I hear? Number 2, we recommend that PPS continue to advocate for the protecting and increasing the K-12 budget for Oregon school districts by achieving the quality education model QEM. Class sizes, even with Student Success Act investments, remain unacceptably high, and in particular, additional state funding could be used to make strategic reductions to class size in certain grades and subjects that demonstrate the greatest need. The Oregon Department of Education Quality Education Model recommended funding level has still not been achieved. While the Student Success Act was a big step in the right direction, the overall investment in Oregon students is still not adequate. The state's legislature reduction of funding for education on account of federal funding received by schools is unacceptable disinvestment in schools. While each round of elementary and secondary relief funds, ESSER 1, 2, 3 funding has and is helpful to eradicate gaps caused by COVID pandemic. CBRC does not favor the use of these one-time funds for ongoing expenditures, as tempting as that might be. So, comments?
Okay, so CBRC does not favor the use of these one-time funds for ongoing expenditures. So, because we are in a crisis, I'm thinking we need to use ESSER funds to pump up anything we can pump up to address the loss of learning. Because if we don't do it now, we're going to, so we look at last year. Last year was a mess. This year is worse. If we don't address this with all that we can right now, in 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, we are still going to have a mess. And I see Ilana's hand is up. But I'm not sure how to say that, but we've got to really pep up whatever we were doing last year. It needs to be on steroids. I know I keep using that term, but that's my feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering if we could potentially, one, figure out how to add what you said in there regarding how these funds need to be used because of that crisis. I would potentially recommend maybe the last sentence being CBRC does not favor the practice of using one-time funds for ongoing expenditures, rather than specifically talking about how these ones are used. Because I think that that's the essence of what we're trying to get across is we shouldn't be using these one-time funds for ongoing expenditures, because what if we don't get that money again? How are we going to get it? How are we going to fund it?
Well, and what I was trying to say is, so one thing that we do, we have tutors. So we might need more tutors, but tutors is in our line item. So I'm not sure how to say it, but we might need to double the tutors. And once we get the kids where they are, then it's okay for those tutors to go away, because we had to have this extra, just like the summer program. We had to have this extra because we're in a crisis state. And so I agree with you that we don't want to do something and then fund something that we know we will continue to need next year and the year after and not have the funds for it. But the extra, when I say pump it up, the extra tutoring is because we are trying to address a crisis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I'm like, if that is what they're going to be using these funds for, and we know that for certain, then I think that makes sense. But I don't know if we know that for certain unless I miss something.
Well, I guess, yeah, but what I would like to put in there is that, let me read it again.
My understanding is the board is intending to use those funds for wraparound programs and the kinds of supports that Renee is anxious that they do. But I like Ilana's suggestion that about the practice of creating ongoing uses of that we may or may not receive funding for.
But I would like to see somewhere in our recommendations that we realize that we're in a crisis state, which is what I put in the document that I shared with you. I didn't want to put it in here in the actual template, but that we're in a crisis state. So we do have to spend extra funds to address our crises, to address the needs of the students that are so much higher than they were in the past. So,
and I guess that's what I'm saying, that it's my understanding the board is intending to do, or the proposed budget is intending to do, is to use the one-time funds to enhance the programs that are to support the needs of students, but not create an ongoing program of that.
Right. And in a way, funding has and is helpful to eradicate gaps caused by the COVID pandemic. And that's a good sentence. It just doesn't sound strong enough because we're in a crisis. We understand that because of the pandemic.
So how would you?
Oh, okay, got it. I see it, Ilana. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking I was just drafting a sentence that says we understand that because of the pandemic's impact on students, these funds are absolutely crucial at this point, and we urge the board to, and then whatever it is, whatever we're urging them to do, like to take advantage of these extra funds to make sure young students
to address the needs of the students, to address the growing gap, to address the loss of education due to the pandemic, something like that. Because
okay, sounds good. And Lisa, you can, if you want to change stuff, sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, number 3.
Okay.
Sorry, can we go back real quick? In a moment. Yeah. Okay.
Where are
So
we going back to?
oh, just to the second one that we were just on, if that's okay. You know how like we right now are still kind of iffy as to like what wraparound services actually entail, and we have ideas about how they potentially should be used, and I'm sure teachers do and students do. I think that it would be good for us to include something about transparency and community engagement / or like input on those decisions for next year, since those funds haven't been specifically allocated for any of those specific items.
Great idea. Good point.
Jordan, chime in if you feel that they've already been put in the document. If not, I'm fine with adding that language.
What say that again, Roger? Not. Are you talking about?
Are the wraparound investments spelled out by the superintendent in his proposed budget?
You know, I'm not entirely sure if. What I do know is that, like, ultimately, as we move forward, we're not going to know exactly how those funds are going to be used. We just know the general. This is where we want to direct them. But ultimately, in the next couple fiscal years, I imagine it's going to change over time, depending on what the needs are and future decisions. So I'll look again just to see if there's anything specific in there. I don't have it memorized. And Alexandra, if you know anything further than I do, feel free to chime in. But I can dig in and get back to you. But I don't think that we have a lot of specifics.
Adding some language for us, so
yeah.
Let's see what she adds, and we'll move on. So I have no problem with adding language if we need to do that, or if we desire to do that. Number 3, we recognize that the current budget makes assumptions about state of school attendance in the fall and beyond, including full-time in-person attendance of all students, with the opt-out moving to an online virtual economy disassociated from the neighborhood school. Given the volatility of the situation we have witnessed over the past year, we recommend that the district take a proactive approach and develop contingency plans with public participation that center on vulnerable populations such as special education students to address eventualities. This work should happen now rather than in the middle of the year of middle and end of summer, which will impact students and the students' ability to plan for their return to school. This is essentially language from last year. Any discussion about that?
Yeah, I guess, is it still relevant, or do we need to reword it some? Because it does reference last year. I mean, not stating 21, 22, but just, is this still relevant?
What do others feel? I'm fine with taking it out, but I would also say that from what I know, I believe it's still the case. But
What is still the case?
that opportunities are being given to students if they wish to go to a virtual academy type of online type of service rather than coming back to in-person instruction.
Yeah, that's true.
And
So can we say something to the effect that that we recommend that that the district continue to offer this as an option for?
They
For
already
students?
are.
Yeah.
They have. We
No,
can
I know.
send
That's
them-
what. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
they're
we can
expanding it.
commend them on continuing to offer, but they've already said that they're going to do that. We
Okay.
can, so we can
okay.
commend them for continuing it.
Okay.
Lisa, you want to put in language that accomplishes that?
Yeah, I think it just needs to be reworded to make it present versus how we worded it last year. I'm just kind of thrown off by it, but I understand what you're saying, that we commend them for continuing this as an option, but I think I just need to reword it a little so it makes it more present, more
I know for a
this year and
fact
next.
I know for a fact it's being expanded, but other than that, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
So moving to 4, we recommend. Okay, excuse me. Go ahead, Renee.
Well, this is not what we're on, but I just have a question. When we were talking about, my question is, did PPS add any more teachers? The reason I ask is because I got an email from Ellie saying they added 10 ELL people, but I don't know if that was in the original budget or is that since they did the presentation on the 26th or the May 4th work session. So I just want to know, are we still at 88 people not in front of our students? Because when I read it, when I was going through their discussion, they said they were adding social workers. Well, social workers are in front of students. So I'm just trying to figure out what is the new number? Is there a new number?
Renee, my understanding is those numbers, the 10 that you referenced are ELL, and I don't know what the other number is for the are included in the budget. The 88 vacancies.
Okay, originally.
Please let me finish, and then you can chime in. The 88 positions that were created by retirements and people moving from the district and so on have not been reestablished.
Yeah, I believe that that's correct. I'll double check on that, but the last that I was aware of, that those positions you're referencing, Renee, the 88, that's still the fact.
Okay, so this is why I'm confused, because in the 88, they said there were counselors and social workers and et cetera. But then Guadalupe said that they have the same amount of counselors as last year. So, I mean, so it's been up and down for me. So when I'm listening to people talk and I'm starting to add up these numbers and subtract, and I'm not coming up with 88 anymore. If they're going to hire 3 social workers or 3 people, they could be a social worker, a psychologist, or a counselor.
Yeah, so that was
that
actually
should be subtracted from the 88, right?
So this is actually the question that Noberto was going to answer for you. And I do think we should have him answer it because he has more context. But what I will say is I think the disconnect is what people mean. So when they're saying like, you know, we have the same number as last year, that might mean like physical bodies. But it doesn't necessarily mean positions, right? So like vacant positions. So I just want to get I'll get clarification for you, and I will try to do that first thing tomorrow morning because I want to make sure you have that early enough. Yeah.
Thank you.
Those are great questions, though, Renee. I appreciate that.
Okay, are we ready to move to 4? I guess so. We recommend.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Did you have something more about 3? Number 4, we recommend continued investment in recruiting, supporting, and retaining teachers of color, even as the district faces budget constraints. We cannot afford to lose ground on the early progress we've made. To be clear, our Black and Native students we will stand to lose the most if we back off our commitments. Making a deliberate investment in supporting teachers of color who are essential to supporting students and ensuring equity will go a long way toward improving school climate and creating better schools for the future. We recognize that there has been some budget allocations toward the mentoring of new teachers, but we still lack measures of the work being done in this area, whether it is likely to achieve the outcomes we desire and whether the investment is adequate. We also have concerns about staff burnout and demoralization that may affect the district's ability to address bringing students back up to level and supporting students as we move out of the pandemic. So I don't remember who was the scrivener for that, but do we have comments, discussion?
So I would say I would put administrators and teachers of color. I would add administrators. And the mentoring program does still exist. They have it presently this year for teachers and administrators of color.
Would you include other student-facing staff like social workers, counselors in that mix?
Yeah. Yes. Gosh, especially social workers. Yeah, I don't know how. So how are we calling it? We're talking about employees who have direct contact with our students. That's what we need. We want students to see someone who looks like them. It may not be in the classroom, but at least a counselor or a social worker. There's no way that every child's going to see a teacher of color at this moment. But to have teachers of color, social workers, you're right, Jordan. So
I wonder if
more,
that would just mean under the classification of like a PAT member. I'm just throwing this out there, and again, my opinion is irrelevant to your report, but I we're not necessarily short of diversity in certain classifications, right? Even in student or school site staff. So like if you walk into a school in PPS, you might see a lot more people of color in roles that are classified, right? So like a
right,
PFSP member. Those folks might still be student facing, like educational assistants, paraprofessionals, but so I'm throwing that out there that
certified,
maybe it's
certified
certified
or
staff.
licensed. That's what we need. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
More
I
broad, but
wonder if you want to say certified because Renee, I know at Franklin, for example, every person who is on the campus security force is a person of color.
Yes. So, oh, are you saying
that's
campus
not a
security
certified
is
staff.
certified?
They're not certified people.
No.
No, that's what I'm
They're
saying.
classified.
So what Jordan was saying is that a number of people who are not certified are people of color. So what we should be saying, instead of saying just teachers and administrators, is using the term licensed or certified employees who have direct contact with students.
Yeah, so licensed, and just to clarify what the HR page is saying, sorry, Roger, I didn't mean to cut you off. That licensed and certified are under the same category.
Mm-hmm.
And then professional educator is the other term, but maybe I can clarify what HR does with their terms, but I think of the essence of it is definitely licensed administrators and educators.
Okay.
My
I'll
concern is if we're commending the continued investment in recruiting and supporting and retaining persons of color in the district, aren't we commending the district for recruiting such individuals in all categories?
Are you commending or looking for an accountability?
Well, that we're recommending continued investment in recruiting these people, and aren't we?
And retaining. So retaining is an important term, which needs to be for all of them.
My point is that students relate to lots of unclassified, uncredentialed, unlicensed, whatever you want to use the HR term. Ilana can, for example, relate to the fact that everybody looks to the head custodian at Franklin as very student relational, and lots of people go to him for help and so on. But anyway, I'm just trying to be all inclusive rather than and I'm not running in contradiction to anything that's been said, but I'm just trying to be more expansive.
Yeah, so I think that the main call out for specifically for the licensed individuals that are student facing is that there isn't a lot of representation or enough. Whereas in some of those other positions, like you're saying at Franklin, the security is all people of color. And other positions that are student facing, they are more diverse already. And so I think that that's why calling it out here specifically for licensed as one of the steps, acknowledging that all of the different student-facing folks could be more representative of students. Yeah. Anyways, those are my thoughts. This late. It's like 10 o'clock where I am, so sorry.
Oh, Jesus. I'll add to that, Alana, and just say that we're acknowledging that licensed staff members are paid more than classified staff members. So the roles that you often see people of color, specifically Black folks, in, and this is not just an education problem, right, is lower paid positions. That doesn't actually mean, though, I will say, too, that maybe it's an and situation, because we also want to retain those classified employees. And by retaining those classified employees could really mean raising
Giving them
wages.
a raise.
Yeah, it could mean a lot of different things. And so maybe it's an and, right? We want to recruit more staff of color in licensed administrator, teacher, PAT positions, and also retain and build our retention around classified staff members of color. Just throwing it out there.
I think we're in agreement that we can do more. I don't believe we're very knowledgeable as to what is being done right now, but
Well, we do know they have mentoring programs for administrators and teachers of color. They are doing that presently this year.
Yeah. And it used to be about an 80% retention rate, and 20% would move on to other professions, other states, or, other districts, whatever. So.
Oh yeah, Reynolds has a lot of our people.
So, are we happy with the language as it is now written, or is someone else going to take a hand at trying to add to it?
Well, I didn't separate. I didn't put recruiting license. Do you want recruiting license, supporting and retaining employees of color? Or just keep it like that? And actually, I don't know if I'm thinking you must be seeing what I'm seeing, because I see somebody else's on here. Okay, well, let's go on to number 5.
Okay, I'm ready to do that. We note that the state formula for alternative CBO community-based organizations and charter schools servicing some of the district's most historically underserved students. I suppose we should use it, combine some underserved there, but provides for funding of at 80% of funding provided to students at other schools. We recommend the board urge the legislature to raise the formula to 100%, while also increasing the funding by at least 10% over state funding in this budget regardless. I can tell you that currently the board's chair of the subcommittee that deals with charter schools and alternative schools is Herman Green, and he is very much in favor of adding the 10% to both alternative and CBO. Last year we opined that because we were solicited by Mount Scott Community Learning Center to raise it by 10%, and so that we recommended. So I amended the language in writing this to include charters, because I know that in fact that Director Green intends to move that the board do that. So, but what's the committee feel?
I agree that we would include charters. So that's Kairos is one. Yes.
I believe the district has about 11 charters, two are which are organized under the state provisions. The rest of them are under the district form. Anyway, how they were created isn't important right now, but they report to the district, and funds are passed through the district to them. So I guess, are we in agreement that both charters and CBO should get at least 90% of funding?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, moving on. Number 6, the budget process continues to be opaque to people who are not well versed in governmental budgeting. We are heartened to learn that the district staff is already engaged in developing a volume 3 of and Lisa, would you insert the right fiscal year for 22-23 budget that will develop summaries and focused expansions of budgetary decisions, the intended effects, and the accountable outcomes for general audiences.
It was better than last year.
Well, yeah, I have my general observation is each year the presentation of the budget is more easily digestible. Largely the format of the 2 volumes is dictated by state statute budget law. So that's why it's always bears some public explanation later.
Number 7.
Okay, moving right along. Thank you,
Hey,
Renee.
can I have a point? Sorry.
Okay.
I forgot to include it when we were on 4. I got distracted. So
Well,
I have
back
a
to
problem. Yeah, I have a problem with using and saying our Black and Native students, and I included that comment in this. I recommended that we take it out, and it was rejected, and I'm not happy about that, to be honest. So, can we have
hey, Lona. Oh, sorry to cut you off there. I just wanted to know, I saw your note, and I think what happened was I deleted the hour in the section that you had indicated that, and I hit the reject instead of the accept button. So I had sent you a follow-up note just to let you know that was I think it was me who accidentally hit it, but I actually deleted the hour from the section you had brought it up. So I just wanted you to know it wasn't someone outright rejecting what you were saying.
So I'm confused. It looks like Ilana added our what happened now?
I didn't add it. It was there. I have it highlighted right now. I'm hoping that I can delete it.
Oh, that's why you're there. Okay.
Delete it.
Okay. I'm going to delete it. Thank you.
Okay, good.
We can move on to 7. Thanks.
Okay.
There's quite a few of those throughout. Just
help me, Jordan.
I did a find, control find, look for the word hour.
Thank you.
Yeah, is that what you do, Jordan? It's a control find.
Yeah, control. Well, now that I'm trying to tell you, I am suddenly forgetting. Yeah, control
F.
Yes. Control F. Okay.
And then search the word, and you'll
In Word, it's a search function. But anyway, are we? What paragraph are we on now? Are we on 7 or 8?
We're on 8.
Okay. We recommend that the school employees.
Oh, wait a minute.
Well.
Yeah, we're on 8.
Okay. I'm starting to read it. We recommend that school improvement plans be made public available for each school. Equity allocations are provided not shared externally. This undermines our stated commitments to being transparent and making data-driven decisions. We must commit to measuring our progress in quantitative map testing and qualitative school and climate surveys and enter into honest, direct conversation with communities about how we will continue to improve. For several of the years now, including the current proposed budget, PPS invests $140,000 in a contract with Panorama to administer school climate surveys, the results of which for at least the past 4 years, the current co-chairs have served on CBRC have not been made available until well after school budget is developed. We must collect a richer array of information and ensure its available use and to inform planning and budget. This is written by co-chair Judah last year, and is unchanged in its current wording. But I think it needs to be reworded because, at least on comment I observed, I serve on the site council over at Franklin, and much of what he dings is ongoing and is provided to the site council of Franklin, and in fact, at our meeting just yesterday, we were reviewing the school climate surveys that had just been completed. I did verify that Panorama was still conducting them. So.
And it's still 140,000?
I don't know that.
So
that
PPS invest in a contract. We'll take the amount out.
Do you want me to clarify the amount?
Yeah, or take, okay. We need to clarify it or take it out.
I'm gonna copy it real quick. If you don't mind not deleting it yet. I got it. Yeah, I'll clarify the amount.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments?
No, I can't say I'm well versed in that. So I mean, I don't know much about the climate surveys.
What I don't know is, I know they're conducted. They do one with students and they do one with faculty, and but how long it takes the Panorama to turn them around once they've been administered, and so they reach the principal, who then at least at Franklin, shares them with the site council to better inform their work on developing a school improvement program that they're charged to do. I just don't know what the timeline is. So some of Judah's complaint about that they arrive after the budget process might be just the way it happens, but divorced of this subject, I would have to say in previous years, the budget has been presented to us a little bit earlier than what it was this year, but I don't know what accounts for that. And last conversation I had with Jordan, I guess he was going to try to look into that, but anyway, that isn't germane to this discussion right now. So do we have any comments? Do we want to take out that paragraph altogether, or want to reword it, or leave it as is?
I'm personally not seeing a need for it, but that's you're saying it's they survey teachers?
Yes, they do. There are 2 surveys done. One is, and they're done simultaneously. So one is done with students, one is done with faculty.
Well, actually, that's important that they get feedback from teachers and students. So I'm trying to remember if I did those. I don't remember. Yeah, well,
Renee, aren't you a retiree?
I am a retiree. I don't remember doing a survey for the district, but I retired 11 years ago.
Okay, but my
12
point is,
years. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, 10 years ago.
I would have received one if I was a current parent, but I'm not now. So I do not.
Interestingly enough, I've had probably 12 surveys in the 4 years I've been around Renee. Just kidding.
Yeah, I just don't remember.
I
But
can't
it
tell you how
also
many
could be I didn't do them. I don't know. I don't remember them.
Well, they do take some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't confirm how many there's been.
Wow.
But I know I've taken some surveys.
It's about a
As a staff member.
30-minute exercise, as I remember. So is it the will of the group to take out the paragraph of number 8 or leave it in?
Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about it to decide, so I'll default to you all.
I agree.
So are we agreeing to take it out or to leave it in?
I mean, do people feel strongly either way?
I do not feel strongly about keeping it. I think the fact that they survey teachers is important, but I don't. It's just not high on my list.
I sense that we should just eliminate it. So
goodbye, number 8.
Okay. So Lisa, are you in the process of doing that? Yeah.
I guess Jordan, who does surveys now, how important do you think that is, Mr. Jordan?
Oh no.
Okay, it's gone.
No, hold on a second. I agree with you, Renee. I do think surveying staff, and specifically school-based staff, is really important. Now, what happens with that survey data, I think, is even more important. And that's the area where I would get clarification if you wanted to keep it in there. But if you all feel like not confident enough in this particular topic, we can remove it. But yeah, I agree. Like, surveys are important, but the experience of many, not just educators, but just folks working in these nonprofit fields, is like surveys happen all the time, and movement does not occur after those surveys happen. So yeah, I don't know. I know I've personally done a ton of surveys as a classified staff member in this district.
And so they never give you feedback?
I personally have, when I was a classified staff member, me personally, after I would do these surveys, I felt like it was never, my opinions never devolved into any sort of action or change. But that was just my singular, individual experience. I can't speak for the whole PPS staff. But yeah, as a classified staff, I felt like I was doing surveys or asked to do them all the time, but it did never do anything.
Yeah, well, if you're not getting feedback from them, I don't. Feedback should also be shared with the people who are doing the surveys. So that's, well,
Yeah.
in a
I just
school.
say, like, if this is not a topic that you all feel like you know enough
Yeah,
about.
I'm not, like I said, it's just not high on my list.
Oh, let's take it out and move on.
Okay.
I was just going to mention that the comment around the timing of the qualitative survey results and the budget planning process, I found that to be insightful. And that is something that the district is, the annual planning cycle is developing and being more intentional around that. So, with the adoption of the strategic plan last summer, I'm finding a connection there, and I found that comment to be insightful.
That's a great point, Alexandra. I'm just being salty from my classified days.
Okay, well, keep it.
But she's correct. I agree that actually the data that we're getting back is really helpful. It's just, again, what happens with it moving forward, I think, is the most important.
What was presented at Franklin just on Monday, yesterday, was use the term "damn COVID," but it has affected a lot of things. When the schedule, when these surveys were undertaken, and so on, as a result of participation levels were down this year from the previous year, but like only a third of the students participated, and so on. The feedback to site council is a beginning to share the data, and it'll be shared with PTA and other ways of getting back to parents and so on, and it's also done in special sessions with students, and I've forgotten what those kinds of sessions are called, but there is a feedback way, and I think it's instructive to learn what Alexandra observed there about it. It's in the process of being incorporated more into the planning of the budget and so on. So maybe I'm fine with leaving it or taking it out, whichever way. I just want to keep moving us on. So are we now disposed to leave it?
Yeah, I think if we just take out for the sentence "for several years now, including the current proposed budget, we invest in this contract, the results of which the past 4 years, the current co-chairs I think if we just take that sentence out, I think it reads fine then.
Okay, take it out.
Okay.
I will say I just confirmed that it is roughly 140,000 investment in panel.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan and Alexandra.
Then I guess we leave
and Lisa.
I just, since we're on the record, I just want to make sure that I put out there that I don't think that people sharing, or excuse me, I believe that people sharing their experiences or giving recommendations through a survey is expertise, and it should be compensated. I don't think that we should tokenize young people if we're going to do that. I also think that it should be somehow compensated in the future. So just want to put that on the record for now, since we're recording. Thank you, Roger, for letting me have this time. I'm ready to move on.
And Ilana, I'd be happy to share what we were presented, and maybe you'll find what the contents are and so on. So
thank you.
Moving on. Number 9, custodial grounds and maintenance staff has historically been acknowledged as an area that was inadequately funded. Current reports indicate that the district has 70 custodial vacancies and many more in maintenance areas. As vacancies precede the pandemic. Remodeled high schools have never been allocated the custodial and maintenance levels promised voters, hence work orders accumulate and add to deferred maintenance, now approaching $1 billion for all buildings. It is CBRC's understanding that the district has reopened its collective bargaining with SEIU to address these ongoing difficulties. Additionally, there remains a shortage of school bus drivers in every category. TPS must provide competitive and livable wages for these critical workers. The current budget has made targeted investments to improve that. However, we lack data and standards to understand whether the investments are adequate to support our district in the near term or to protect the substantial work being done to rebuild our aging schools. Therefore, we recommend the district identify industry standards for staffing and investment needs and establish a plan to achieve a sustainable level of required work. Some of that language is from last year and some of it's new.
So is does maintenance staff, I think somehow we should add our nutrition specialists in there, or nutrition people. They get paid.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. Nutrition staff is a collective bargaining group under SEIU, but the funding for nutrition services is independent and divorced of the budget. It comes solely through federal fund.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind. Don't put it in there then.
Okay.
Is that
they're underpaid?
Is that required or is that by choice?
What's choice? Or what do you mean?
So what I mean is like, I understand it the same way that you do, Roger, that we are funding nutritional services through a federal funding stream, but how much food service workers are paid, nutritional service workers are paid, can a school district budget go into that, or other areas of it, or is it solely just?
It would be my understanding that we're doing that, but I'm
okay.
That's probably something you need to verify with.
I can clarify. Yeah, I can clarify that.
Are you saying that the school district supplements it, their wages?
Yes, that's what I am saying, but I don't know that for a fact. I just know that we do collectively bargain with the nutrition services people under SEIU, and they're telling us that some of them are not even making the $15 minimum wage, or I guess Portland is to reach that next year or something like that, but
yeah. The reason I bring that up, Roger, is just because I think with the current sentence structure that you have in 9, you could include nutritional service workers in that if you wanted to.
Well, custodial, grounds, maintenance staff, and nutritional services personnel.
Yeah, have historically been acknowledged as an area that was inadequately funded. I think that's a truth.
Okay.
For most people, but I'm just saying you could add it if you wanted to.
And just as historical context, the district used to have about 300 people involved in maintenance. So that's plumbers, electricians, you name it. People that do walls and stuff like that. But and we're down to 80. And I'll help Renee with the spelling here. Nutritional. Okay.
Oh, wait. Let me finish first.
Okay.
I know how to use spell check.
They teach you in that math class, Renee?
No, they didn't.
Well, it just pops up and you just click on it and it changes the spelling. So any other comments about the wording of that paragraph?
No, I think my only comment was maybe we can add a statement of why this is important and kind of circling back to our students, because I think we've heard a lot in the last couple of weeks about the importance of food and clean and safe buildings for the students. And so I think maybe if people are okay, I'll add a sentence at the end to kind of say why this is important, not only for the staff, but also for the students.
Yeah,
Yes.
I guess I interpreted that being self-apparent, but add that language and I have no problem with
That
it.
that was in my recommendations list.
Okay.
Yeah, because it seems like it's been brought up, and I know at the board meeting it was emphasized too that those are important factors for kids to even be able to get to the point where they can learn. So I'll just add something in there. Thanks.
Okay. Must provide competitive living.
As one who goes into the buildings on a daily basis, they're filthy, and Franklin is a 300,000 square foot building on a 17-acre campus, and we have 2 full-time custodians on every night. So moving on to 10, we highly recommend the addition of student involvement in how the equity allocation of 8% of staffing model are at targeted schools is used at the school level. It is our observation that administrators are determining how these funds are used, and we recommend that in order to be transparent and ensure that these funds are allocated collaboratively with communities. That's language from last year. It would be my observation that's precisely what a site council does, but anyway.
That's not from last year. I just added it.
Oh. Okay.
It was in response to the observation number 4. I know that Lisa had also seconded that we should have a recommendation off of that. So that was just a draft. Happy to change anything.
I know at Franklin, the principal usually shares what his recommendation is to how those funds be used, and he shares those with the site council. So,
Yeah, I think to Alana's point and to Roger's point both, I think there's mechanisms that can be used, but I don't think there's a required, I'm not sure if there's a required mechanism for student staff engagement when principals and school administrators are determining how their budget is spent. I in my experience, site councils have been used to be somewhat engaged in some of that, but not necessarily documented or required. And also, how effective is it? It's not really being measured at how effective that is, and so I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, Roger, I've seen that. Cleveland does a similar thing with their site council, although it's changed a lot in the last 5 years.
well, Cleveland's also had multiple principals in the last.
Yeah, I was going to say we had 4 principals in 3 years, so it makes a lot of sense that it didn't work out quite right. So.
Also, I know for a fact that that principals are tasked with staffing decisions in a very short time period. So how extensive you're advocating for community involvement may be a practical question.
Yeah.
Asking principals to reach out for community input and student input and so on is instructive, but recognizing it
timeline similar to yours, Roger. Timeline is similar to yours and CBRC's with this report. I mean, it's given around the same time span. The numbers are, although there's been times that it drags out well into the summertime, which engaging community in the summertime can be difficult. So that is a reasonable question, an observation.
Yeah, I don't think that we should limit ourselves, though, in practicality pieces if we're giving a recommendation. Just like you said earlier today, Roger, like it's not our job to figure out how that would work. It is, though, our job to make sure that community is engaged within this, or the recommendations are from community. And so all I'm saying is, you know how you're saying that Franklin has a good system for this? That's required. Like some iteration, even if it's just a baseline, is required at all schools. Because not all schools are as good as Franklin.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at
No, it's not a laugh. I went to Franklin, so obviously I have pride in it.
Oh, there's some bias going on here.
Well, Franklin's the best, so go blinding folks or whatever.
And as I often point out, that Franklin, bear in mind, I have a daughter graduate, Grant, and I'm a Cleveland graduate, but Franklin is the most diverse of all high schools in the system, and any student that goes to Franklin will experience what the real world is like when they graduate. So moving on, I guess we're fine with 10 as it was, and I guess 11 down there because I guess it's just other potential recommendations, PPS and employer other means to them just diversifying the district categories to make systematic changes. I'm not sure, is that Renee or Ilana's comment there?
Yeah, I put that hold there in case we wanted to do a recommendation based on that observation up top, one of the observations. But I think that it would have to be framed differently because I do know that PPS does have other modes of monitoring that and changing it. So I don't feel strongly about necessarily including it. It just was a follow through from the observations.
Well, if I understand
PPS.
Go ahead, Renee.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I read out loud. I wasn't talking to you guys.
Oh. Well, I was gonna observe that I think we don't really know what all the district is presently doing, and therefore we don't know what needs to be changed or enhanced. And so I don't know exactly how we word that if we include it.
Me neither, and my mind is very tired. So I'm fine to like 95% just take it out. And if someone feels strongly before we submit it that we add it back, do that, but I'm totally fine to just delete it if that works for folks, and maybe next year we can look more into that.
I actually think it's a very important statement, so it needs to be somewhere.
Yeah, why don't we leave it there for now? And because I know you brought it up in the observations, Alona, of just because we're staffing something some way doesn't mean it's making the systemic changes that are needed. And so I do think that's an important point to make. So I don't know if you want to continue, if you want to follow on your thought on that, or but I agree. I think it's important to state. I think it's
Okay, yeah, totally, that makes sense. Yeah, I can't think of how to properly word it, but are we meeting on Thursday, or is this the last one?
There has been no decision made about meeting Thursday. Our report has to be submitted on Friday. So
our report has to be, I thought it's supposed to be submitted what's today? The 9th, 10th, 11th?
It's due on Friday.
Oh, okay.
We were told it was to be tomorrow, but then it was extended by the board to that they're willing to have us submitted on Friday. So I don't know by what hour we have to be there, but I think.
Oh, good, because there's some questions. Okay, good.
Do you have any currently for measuring the impact of hiring diverse staff at a central office level?
I'm sorry, say that again, Jordan.
Do we have any metrics for measuring the impacts of hiring diverse staff at a central office level? That was one of the things that came to my mind when I was thinking about your potential recommendation. I wonder if it can be folded into your point about hiring, retaining staff of color. I don't know, just throwing that out there.
So I do, when I was listening to Alana, I do have concern about these plans that we have. So I listened to Dr. Proctor as she was doing her presentation, and thinking about all these great things that are on paper, but have these other things change. For example, we've been talking about discipline, and all of a sudden I hear nothing about discipline. When I say discipline, are our students of color still being disciplined at a higher level? Where I haven't seen any data lately. And that's one of those indicators that an indicator for our students. So I'm just wondering if do all the other things. What has changed so that this new system can actually reach our students? And one of the things we do know is when students feel that they have someone to talk to. Anyway, I just want to know more about that, but it's not necessarily important for the budget, but I'm concerned when we keep changing our curriculum and we change, we make these changes, but are we making sure that our teachers, that the people who are facing our kids have high expectations of them, are not disciplining, using discipline practices different for are Black males than they are for the white males. There's all those other things, and I just want to hear more about that. And again, it has nothing to do with the budget report at the moment, but it does concern me.
Does someone want to take a hand at trying to put some language in there?
No, I don't know if that language goes in there.
So are we all
the only reason I mentioned it is because when I look at I was just listening to Alana just a little while ago. So just because we diversify doesn't mean that the system has changed. That's what I'm saying. Has the system changed? Are teachers thinking about what they're doing when they discipline our children? Are they trying to reach our students? Are they including people who look like them when they're teaching classes? So I know they do a great job at Grant because I work there. I mean, I know they're doing a great job with books. The English teachers use books written by people of color. They bring in folks to speak. Now, there are some teachers there that I've been saying need to go for a long time, but for the most part, Grant's doing a great job. Was doing a great job. I haven't been there in a couple of years.
At Franklin this year, there's been both student parent conversations that are Ilana might relate to them. I know when Maggie, my daughter, was at Mount Tabor Middle School, they called them courageous conversations. At Franklin, they're calling Franklin Talks. They're discussions. They're reading books. They're all written by persons of color and so on, and trying to wrestle with the ongoing equity questions that confront the district. And there is also complaint that there has been a swing toward a lack of consequences for misbehavior of any kind of student. I hear that when I'm signing in teachers in the morning and so on. Moving on to closing remarks then. CBRC is deeply appreciative of Superintendent Guerrero's leadership, and in particular his commitment to ensuring the needs of the district's combined underserved students are prioritized during this challenging time. Notwithstanding, the district has directed investments for several decades to address those underserved. The fact is we have substantial work to do to meet the PPS goals, including work to undo decades of inequitable investments in systems that have reserved to protect white privilege at the expense of Black and Native students and families. We call on the board to adopt a budget that respects these commitments and keeps us on an urgent, focused path toward more equitable and excellent systems of schools, even in the face of uncertainty or delays to our planned timeline that students cannot afford anything less. Some of this language was from last year. CBRC wishes to express its deep gratitude to Roberto Dagliaro, CFO, and Jordan Cooper, confidential executive assistant, and Alexandra Martin, business operations analyst, for the invaluable support. CBRC submits this report to the PBS education. Then the list of individuals, and the question marks are behind individuals that haven't really been attending or participating in these discussions. And so The question is whether they should be signatories to the report. Comments?
I want to say thank you again to Alexandra, Noberto, and Jordan. I don't know who, I put question marks behind two people. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, that's what I just referred to.
I don't know who they are.
But largely because they haven't been in attendance.
Ever? I've never met them, right?
Well, yeah, you might have. Well, I don't know when you've been in California, but Parker was a co-vice chair last year. He is a student body president at Benson, and he just most recently was reappointed to serve on the committee and will continue.
Roger, I'll also add, because Renee has highlighted two people individually or specifically, not necessarily Parker, but one of those folks came to, I think, one or two meetings, but they were kind of in the background. So I would assume that you probably have not met them.
I know Parker, but I don't, the ones I highlight in blue, I didn't know who they were.
Yeah, they have not been attending regularly.
I would have to say in previous years, we had a CBRC member that did not attend a single meeting and then yet wanted to sign the report, and it was denied that person at that time. So it would be my suggestion that we not ask or we not list a person's name if they haven't participated in these discussions. So, but I'm fine leaving them there. They're appointed members to the committee, so it's whatever your will.
We have like a policy for that, like if you miss however many, or is this supposed to be an opt-in signatory? Like, are we supposed to all right now say that we are open, like willing to have our name signed?
The suggestion that the board adopt a policy about attendance has been made, and it's not ever been acted on.
Okay.
But I think what you're saying, though, like if they're not here to substantiate what we're saying in an agreement, then I guess I don't feel comfortable adding their names then, and I don't know if there's a way we can just say something that just indicates they were other members of the committee, not, I don't know if there's a way to say it or acknowledge it, or maybe Jordan, I don't know if you know if we have to indicate that they're other members, or should we just sign off who's here and who's willing to sign it as a member of the committee?
Yeah, maybe you could, because I don't know the specifics. I do think, ultimately we would need to include in the charter an attendance, area, policy, whatever it is. But for the sake of this letter, because I agree with you, Lisa, it's hard because you don't want to add somebody's name if they did not agree to the statements that are being made.
Mm-hmm.
You might just have, their name with
some language there, Jordan, why don't we just list other members not participating in report preparation and list the two members there?
Yeah, something like that would definitely work. I think I'm going to leave it up to you to decide how you want to write that, but I agree that maybe just noting that these folks did not sign this or, agree to it is important.
Well, but then that brings up the point, like people might ask why they didn't agree to it.
That's true too, yeah.
Like, and I don't want people to be like, oh, they're a divided group, which is fine if we are, but we're not, so.
That's a good point.
No, and historically, we've never had a minority report or anything of that kind. And that's why we're working for consensus on our language tonight. And are names there that they did not participate. I don't know whether you want to say because they didn't attend, or just
Did they
are
attend more
they
than
are
one meeting?
they are legitimately appointed members by the board, and they did not participate in the report preparation. So,
Renee, what was your question?
Did they attend more than one meeting?
One of them did not attend any meetings, and the other did not attend a full meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're not on the committee.
Yes, I agree. I don't feel like we want to. I don't really feel like I don't want to call people out though. I don't.
So we're not calling them out. We're not calling them out. They're just not listed.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want them listed under another category if it's okay.
I also want to, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, one of those two folks had brought up, a few times early on that accessibility was an issue for various reasons. And so I agree with Alana and that, we don't want to point folks out necessarily. Though I will say the accessibility issues were addressed and there was kind of a fall off. So I agree. We shouldn't just call people out, and we should probably really, not we, you all may be intentional about a policy around attendance and how it's enacted and what kind of, not we.
Could we say, I wonder if we could just say on the sign off, the following CBRC members respectfully submit this report? Or does that still call out that there's other members that didn't sign?
Can you say that again?
If we just add in the sign off that the following CBRC members respectfully submit this report.
Nice. I like that language.
Yeah.
And then exclude the two people that haven't been here, because I guess I feel comfortable now as we're talking it through, like we can't really put their names on there because they haven't agreed to any of this. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't call them out because they're not listed. So maybe that's the way to say it.
I will say that to that point too, Lisa, there's an extra layer because one of our pages in the budget book does list all the members of the CBRC. So they will be listed there. They just won't have their names directly on the report.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand. I just don't think anyone's really going to look at who's listed here and who's on that other, but I don't know if people are paying that close of attention to but
I just wanted that
detail. Good with what was that?
Oh, I was just saying I just didn't want that detail to be left out.
Yeah.
So is Parker going to have an opportunity to read this and comment, or is he totally
if you want to reach out to him, then yeah, I have sent just the same amount to him as I've sent to you all over the last few months, or since he started with us again.
So. Now he was the one whose father came into town.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yes, yeah, right.
Well, let's leave him there until it's submitted. If we never hear anything from him saying yes, I approve or whatever, then.
Would you all like me to send him a follow-up email tomorrow? And just
yeah.
He's also a young person, so if you can text or call.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if someone else can. I don't know if I have his phone number, but if I did, I would.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I will say I've also seen Parker in person, so and he's here quite often, so I'm happy to try to engage with him in multiple ways just to make sure he has some input on the report.
I'd say everybody listed, the names that have been taken off, but have received the same communications that you all have received. So it's kind of like signing a check. Do you ask that their names be on the check, or don't you? So anyway, I think we need to resolve how we're going to finalize the report. Is it the consensus that we meet again on Thursday to do that, or can we do it remotely by us individually reviewing the draft report and Lisa and I will take our hand at resolving all the issues and submit it on Friday, or what's the will of the group?
What's your will, Lisa?
I mean, what I would like is maybe if anybody has any additional things they want to add, to go ahead and maybe take tomorrow. Sorry, my dog is crying for me here. If people want to just, I know we've talked about a few pieces in here that people can just kind of think about and then come back to. And if people can do that tomorrow, I'm happy to take things tomorrow night and into Thursday and kind of try to get to one final round that people could look at Thursday evening and then finalize it.
Okay.
So you want to state some specific times, Lisa, so we can bounce again? If somebody submits a comment at midnight on Thursday, I think that's too late. So
Yeah, so I would say like tomorrow by 5, if anybody has, based on our conversation tonight, if people can just kind of take a look at it again. And I know there's a few pieces I've said I'll come back to and try to summarize or combine things. So if everybody can do that by 5, I'll work on it tomorrow night and Thursday and have something in there Thursday. And people, again, if people could give me comments by 5, or if people work and want to do it by 7, I'll have time Friday morning. I just don't want to, I feel like we've got a lot of progress done tonight, and I really appreciate everybody working to edit the document as we've gone through. So I feel like we're in good shape, but yeah, I just want to give people time to be thoughtful and if they kind of want to revisit some things in here. So if kind of we can do 5 tomorrow and 5 on Thursday with, just shoot me an email or let me know if there's anybody needs additional time. I think that could work. And then I'll work to wrap it up and submit it by noon on Friday, maybe, so that it's just not lingering and out there. And then we have the other piece, which is the local option levy, which I can wrap that up tomorrow. But I don't know if Roger, if you want to look through some of the numbers just to make sure those are correct. But I think otherwise we're in good shape. But yeah, if you could do that, then we can wrap that piece up tomorrow. So does that work for people? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead and send me the local option levy, and I'll be glad to look at it. And the timeline that you outlined, as far as I'm concerned, is fine. 5 o'clock both tomorrow for comments, 5 o'clock for everybody to review the document as it's been finalized, and you can polish Friday morning and submit it by noon.
Okay, and Alona or Renee, does that work for you?
Yes, works for me.
It also works for Ilana. Thank you.
How about you,
Great.
Hobbs? Does that work?
Oh, and Hobbs too, yes.
Yeah, that works for me.
Oh, I thought Hobbs had left. That's Sean.
No, I'm sorry. We just moved, and like I'm in my new room. It's a mess. And I'm on the call, but I'm like setting up my bed.
Well, we appreciate you being here, Hobbs, and staying on for this long. It's a lot to go through.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Hobbs.
Hobbs is amazing.
So, okay,
I just want to also add that if you have more questions or you want to have conversations with staff, please feel welcome to reach out and I will set that up. And I'm happy to discuss things with you too. And then I have added several new questions to the Q&A doc. I will work my hardest to get answers to those tomorrow so that you have time to absorb those. And I will make a point to send an email to you all tomorrow with the link to the Q&A doc, and just as a reminder that it's been updated or when it's updated. Yeah. So.
And then Jordan, would you be available Thursday just to kind of glance through, just to make sure we're using correct language and references?
If you all would like me to do that, I'm happy to do that, and then I can, instead of editing, I'm happy to just put suggestion comments, and then somebody else can go in and resolve those.
Exactly. Or I can call you and we can talk through it. But yeah, I just think it would be appreciated.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Happy to. Just let me know.
Okay, if everyone is on the same page, I think we'll call this meeting to an end. And I thank you all individually and collectively for your hard work.
Great job, team. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been really great working with all of you, and I appreciate everyone's perspective. It's really been great for me.
Thank you.
Okay, keep your eye out.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Yes, it has. It's been awesome. I appreciate you all so much. Our budget will be better because of you. I'm just going to say that.
That's what I was going to say, Jordan. I agree. You all are amazing, and I'm so glad that your perspectives are being elevated like this. I really appreciate all of your time, and it's been great working with everyone. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra, and thank you for your input.
So we got a 5 o'clock deadline tomorrow to look at things. A 5 o'clock deadline on Thursday, and thank you all very much for your hard work. So good night.
Good night.
Good night.